Kristen Arnett. Welcome to Wild Precious Life.
Hey, thank you for having me today.
Okay, so I've read your other stuff and I know your work, but even if I didn't and hadn't done those things, I would have agreed to this pitch because a lesbian birthday clown. Yes, please tell me more. Where did the itch of the scratch of this book come from?
I think it's like truly that I was like, I want to write something funny. I think all of my work has like humor inside of it.
Yeah.
That's just like something I'm interested in. But this specifically, I was like, I want to write a book that feels like an extended bit, maybe a little bit. You know? And one of those things too is I had this like image in my mind of like a birthday party clown, and I was like, that came to me. And sometimes like an image comes to me and that means I'm going to write a short story, I have like an idea for an essay or something. This one I was like, oh, this is like something I really want to write, like an expanded universe around this clown. So the clown image came to me right away. Cherry came to me right away. I could see who she was. And then I was like, okay, what if this is like a story about art, and like how the world can kind of crush you as you're trying to like make the thing you want to make. And people have a lot of things to say about the passion that you have, and also like capitalism and consumerism, and if this is a story about Orlando, what it means to be in like a tourist economy and in like hospitality, and have people think like where you live and what you do is tacky no matter what, even though they're coming and spending money there. So I was like, okay, this is like very much a story about somebody who's like gonna be like for the entirety of the story talking to you about why clowns are important and like why this art is meaningful. And I was like, okay, and every chapter will feel like its own kind of contained joke. So by the end of it, like shape wise, it feels like, I don't know, like a 1 hour stand up, like, like you've got like like all the bits together. It's the book I've written the most quickly, and it's also the book that gave me the most joy to write. I had like a genuine joyful time writing this book. I think truly I was like, I want to sit with a clown. I was like, that's where I was like at. I was like, I want to tell a story about somebody, like, even though they're like going through grief and loss and trauma, like maybe the way that they process this is like through the idea of humor and jokes and like the facade of a clown. And then the more I like, as always happens with a project I think is fun, or that I really like or get engaged with, I started doing research about clowns. And then I was like, oh, there's a lot more to this than I thought. And then I got like really obsessed with clowns. So I was like, well, that's good. That's good for this. It's good for a book project anyway.
There's something joyful also about watching a messy character be a mess. Like Cherry the clown, our main character, is a lot of fun. She's wry, her narrative is funny. She works at Aquarium Select 3, I think, but there is no Aquarium Select 1. Like she's fun. There is Aquarium Select 2 because they sell pet food, like cat food or whatever. But she's funny. Like she's funny, but she's kind of a hot mess, right? When she gets her
Mhm.
mail and sees the bills, her solution is to put them in a pile on the table and throw them out 4 months later without paying because she's got no money. And I can't look away. I remember when I was previewing this book, I'm like, I'm just going to read a little. And I just get sucked into the mess of her life because I've also been a mess frequently, right?
Mhm.
I've hemmed dresses with a stapler, and I once attended an awards assembly with my child who was not getting an award, and I thought I waited the whole time for them to get an award. I had attended, but the child wasn't getting an award. I ate a stranger's cupcake once, just thought it was mine. Like I often confuse happy birthday and Merry Christmas in Spanish, so it's not unusual for me to say Feliz Cumpleaños to people, which is kind of okay at the holidays. But my point is, like, we're all clowns, and so I don't know. It was kind of a clown town mirror looking at Cherry. Like, I'm not a clown the way she is, but we're all a mess, and there was such great permission in this book to be messy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And I love that that's like what you went into the book and saw this, because I'm very interested in people. I think to be a writer, you can go a few different ways. Like, right, like you can be a misanthrope and like you can be writing. You can also be like, I'm a lover of people. I think people are endlessly fascinating, and it's because they're all so deeply messy. Like, everybody's messy in like some kind of capacity, right? You've got like the cherry end of the spectrum where it's like, yeah, she's not paying her bills and she's also like spending money that like she doesn't have on things that she doesn't need. Or like, being like, well, I have $5. I can put how much gas in my car, like right now at this moment, and like pray and fingers crossed I don't run out on the highway. But there's like a capacity to that where I was like, I want her to feel like a mess in some regards in her life, but the one place like maybe she's like being serious is like about art. And she's like, I refuse to be a mess when it comes to this because I care too much. And that to me, I was like, this is also like a human thing, right? Compartmentalizing and deciding which things you like are going to allow yourself to be a mess over, or being like, this thing's too important for me to be a mess, or even like throughout, like, because I was like, there's like a discovery for her, like as a character, I think, where she realizes that has been messy maybe in a little ways with her art because she hasn't allowed herself to grow or to change. So I think like people are the greatest. I mean, I spent like years and years like working in libraries, and I don't think you could spend that long working in libraries without being like people, right? There's just like a way in which I was like just constantly people watching, sitting at circulation, and I was just like, and it made me a better writer, I think. It also made me just like really deeply love how incredibly weird and strange like literally everyone is. Like there's not like even people who like I think we think are like as normies or something. No, they're not. Everybody has like some weird shit about them, and that is like the most fun I think there is for writing, is like writing about these ways that people are just so weird.
People are like everyone is nuts, and I feel like it would be helpful if they all had like, instead of the scarlet A, if we just had like the post-its of like all the ways we're bananas, and people would lie, but that would be on the post-it too. Okay, so at the same time you're writing this book about clowns, like you also acknowledge, and Cherry acknowledges like the elephant in the room, which is not an elephant at all, but it's like a balloon or a sewer. Like the world is full of clown haters, right? Stephen King made people afraid of clowns, and then the Batman franchise made them pity or distrust clowns. I don't know. How come you don't pity, distrust, or fear clowns? Like, how did you escape from that? I don't know. Like, it's sort of a pop culture narrative, right?
Yes, it definitely is. And it's one that I've been immersed in. Like, I'm a Stephen King fan. Like, I've read every Stephen King book. I love how he writes about place. I'm such a place writer, writing about Florida. And I think one of the things is that like, I'm always very interested in the idea of somebody's art being somebody else's like level of disgust. Like, maybe that's like the Florida in me jumps out. Like, I'm really rooting for like the idea of the weird underdog a lot of the time. Because when I was like a child of the 80s. My bedroom had clowns in it. One of my first toys I can remember having was a little clown that I named Mustard because he had yellow hair. Um, but it was like one of these things where clowns were around in a kind of capacity. And then like, yeah, the way that like people just like began looking at clowns was through these kinds of like social lenses, right? And don't get me wrong, I think clowns can be scary, and people rightfully have fear of like things that are like masked, like designed to trick the eye, things that can be loud or surprising. So I was like, oh, it was kind of a challenge for me. And I love a challenge. I was like, I want to write a clown, and I want to have not for a lick of this to be scary. I was like, I want somebody maybe who has like a slight, because I think somebody who's really terrified of clowns is probably not going to pick this book up. I would love for them to, but I understand. But like somebody who has like a kind of midline creepy fear of clowns to come into this book and like end with it being like, I had a good time in here. Like I had fun. This made me laugh. I didn't feel afraid while I was reading it. Because I also think too, it allowed me to kind of play around with gender and like drag, like who gets to perform and who gets to tell a joke in a kind of way, and performing behind a mask and being like a different kind of person. And I was like, that's not just clowns, that's lots of things, right? Like the ways that we move through life, even in queerness, like performing for people. So clowns just like naturally became like a catch-all for lots of different things for me, which is my favorite way to work on a book. Because what my first novel was like taxidermy, and taxidermy became like everything for me. I was like, oh, this is taxidermy, that's taxidermy. This is like how clowns are for me. And I'm like, oh, that's clowning. that's clown performance. Like, this is like the fool. This is like the, you know, the kind of things. And also I live in Orlando. Like, we're like, and I'm writing about Orlando, and this is like a level of performance. And we have lots of clowns. We have lots of like adjacent clowns, and like a level of performance that's meant to entertain like a broad swath of America, right? Like children and families in this kind of capacity. Um, and also it's just fun to write the absurd. Like, clowns are absurd, right? It's like everything's exaggerated. Like, a clown is a caricature. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that was just fun.
until I read this book, I never had thought about an extended metaphor, like a clown as an extended metaphor for closetedness and like queerness itself. And truthfully, I was farther into the book than I probably should have been before I saw you doing this. And I'm like, oh God, this is because it's already funny. It's already a fun book. It's already like this quirky, there's like Florida man or Florida womanness about it. It's already a good time. And then when I see you weaving in this idea that, Cherry talks about like the steeliness that's required to be a clown, right? If in order to do this, I really have to like steel myself to do it. And she talks about like it's not unlike the coming out process. There's always going to be people in your life who hate you for who you are and what you love, right? They've decided about you and they don't even know you. And the fact that it's taking place in Florida, which is a place where I feel like politically, a lot of folks have decided who queer people are and what they can and cannot do and what their body should and should not do. Oh man, I'm just that really works, Kristen. I've never thought about lesbians and clowns and the great lesbian clown metaphor, but I do now, and I'm never going to be able to unsee it.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I mean, it's like one of those things where I feel like as I'm writing, I'm discovering things too. Because I think I'd be lying if I said like I'm sitting down to write a novel and I know all of those things as I'm sitting down to work. One of my favorite things about writing is like the surprise and discovery for myself as I'm working. And that was one of those things as I was going through this book where I was like, oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's what this is. And that like makes it so I hope it's not a boring time for the reader, because it means it's not a boring time for me to work on it.
No, it's fun. And Cherry also makes this distinction between clowning and stand-up comedy that I'd never
Yeah.
thought about either. That I just, if you'd asked me, I probably would have thought they were the same. Like
Hmm.
Nate Bargatze, who's a comic out there, his dad was a clown. He's always like, if you want to know how to get into comedy, have a dad who's a clown. That's a pretty good way to start, you know? And so I think I would have thought they were the same, but Cherry has this idea like if you're a stand-up comic, you're all about the I, right?
Hmm.
Me. And if you're a clown, you're all about the you. That
Hmm.
you're giving your comedy away. You're giving it to other people. And the way that Cherry takes her craft so beautifully seriously, right? Can't pay a bill, but will show up in full clown gear to a roller rink, and the mom is like, "Wait a minute, you're supposed to be a scary clown." And Cherry just like wipes the lipstick off and then starts chasing people on roller skates. Like, you want scary clown? I'll give you scary clown. Like, she takes her art really seriously. And it isn't about I. It's absolutely selfless, possibly with Cherry to a fault, right? She is lost
Hmm.
in some parts of her life, but she is giving this entertainment. And I hadn't thought as much about how it takes place in Orlando, but your whole city is defined by giving the rest of us entertainment, right? We come there with our children expecting to be entertained. So the metaphor of Florida and queerness and clowning, they really are in good harmony.
Yeah, I do think that that was an important distinction for me working on this book, and something I leaned a lot into researching was the idea of like, right, like how does humor and comedy work inside of like, right, like the idea of like stand up and the clown and what the clown represents, and lots of different kinds of clowns, right? So and I was like, oh, the clown is a giver. Like, the clown is like performing specifically for the audience and will cater to the audience. And a lot of times, like, stand up is like about like, right, the self, and like many jokes inside of stand up are about personal experience, and how like your own jokes are shaped by what's happened to you personally. And I was like, clown is a giver. And yeah, like Orlando's a space of hospitality. Like we have the Rosen School here at like University of Central Florida. That's like, they have like the hotels where like, you know, undergrads come and like work and learn hospitality. Like you learn how to perform and cater and behave for people who are coming here to like utilize like entertainment. And you become like almost see-through and non-existent to people, and unless you're performing in ways they don't like, and then they see you. So it was like a clown hit all those things for me. Also, yeah, because to be like such a bright, vibrant, like out there kind of thing, and to have people not see you unless they're angry, maybe, or they're mad about like what you represent, or have like preconceived ideas about like what you do. Felt very, very Orlando to me, honestly.
Yeah, and there's something strange, like there's a simultaneity about, on the one hand, Cherry works in a hospitality entertaining industry in a town that's sort of based on hospitableness and entertainment within a state where that's not exactly how I would perceive the way Florida is treating queer folks now. And so there was this interesting tension, right, where Cherry's clowning is also uh, she's not dealing with the other stuff in her life, but when she's clowning, she's all in. But there's a lot going on with Cherry. There's grief and loss and a relationship with mom, and we haven't even gotten to Margot. But there's a real tension for me in the book between place, right? Orlando is like warm and fuzzy, but also place as in like I've been to Orlando. Is there a real happening queer scene there? Because if it is, where is the gay bar?
Oh, there's lots of queer spaces. I think that's something I wanted to have explored in this book too. Like, people have like a lot of ideas about like what Orlando is like, but quite often when they're traveling to Orlando, they're going directly to the entertainment hubs. So they're going to Disney or Universal or SeaWorld or any of these like spaces. They'll even like hop on like in rental cars or in these buses that are designed to pick you up to take you right to those places. And Orlando is massive. Florida is a huge state. So, like, I've lived in Orlando my whole life. I'm third generation Central Floridian. We have a shit ton of queer people here and trans people. First of all, like, number one, we're an entertainment industry. Like, who do you think is dancing, acting, singing, doing performance? That's not straight people. That's gay people. So we have like a ton of people who are like working in hospitality, but then we also just have like people who like live here and work here, like any place. I think that our government is spaces where like people have an idea of like what Florida is through this like very visible media lens of like who's in charge of Florida. But the reality, especially in Orlando, which is a blue hub inside of like red Florida, is that we have like we have a once a month dyke night that happens here. I went last month and there was probably about 200 lesbians, like trans and non-binary people. They're like dressed as clowns. It was clown night randomly. And I was like, this is people that are so many people that are all local. And then like we have gay bars here and they're all like, it's according to like where you are in Orlando, right? Because I think people are like, oh, I've been over here, but really like been to iDrive, or they've been over to like, and I'm like, that's like 30 minutes away. It's like 30 minutes away from like Orlando proper. But the other's like, I think it's like any place you go, like probably any state, like there's places. It's just like if you're local, you know where to look. If you're queer, you know where to look. We have like, and we have like a thriving like community of people who are like working to work on stuff here. Like it's really DIY, like scrappy. We have tons of queer spaces that are like queer because queer people work at them, and then queer people go there because they feel safe because queer people work there, and then it becomes like a unintentional like queer spot, like a LGBTQ space. But we also have like a Southern and District Dive and a place called Stiffies, and they're like 100% all the time gay. So it's like, and then they have like lesbian burlesque on Saturday nights. Like there's tons of stuff happening here, and that's just Orlando. But I think it's like one of those things where, yeah, like when you're a hospitality space and you're like meant, like we're not going around like that's not getting promoted. Like you're not going on like Orlando or like Florida's website looking for like attractions and being like, oh, by the way, like Stiffies with the pole dancing, like gay men, like that's there. Like we can pop over there. Like, right, that's something like that locals like know about. So it's I always call myself like unofficial like brand ambassador for Florida, specifically Orlando. So like I'm always trying to get people to come here so I can be like, and let me tell you where to go and do, because there's like Florida's a huge state, right? Like Miami is not the Keys, like that's not Orlando, that's not Jacksonville, St. Pete and Tampa, like the Panhandle, Tallahassee, like all those things are very disparate. Jacksonville, even like these places are all their own version of like a kind of Florida. So, and there's like tons of queer shit in each of those spots. So I'm always excited to talk to people. It's like one of my things where I'm like, I want to talk to people about like the queer spots here. So in this book, I was like, I want there to be spaces like this in here too, and like places where, but also, and be very realistic, like many other places too. There's people that are shitty about it, right? Like there's people that show up ready to be hateful. So I was like, that has to be in here too, because you've got the light and the dark, right? You've got both of these things sitting simultaneously. But it would be untrue if we said this only happens in Florida. Like that kind of stuff happens everywhere.
Oh yeah, I live in a red state now, right? Ohio
Mhm.
used to be kind of purple. I'm in Cleveland, so we're a blue city in a red state where our
Yeah.
senator just became vice president in a government that I will not speak of. So I think all of us who are um, involved in art, right, who are creative folks who care about people having bodies and being allowed to use them as they see fit. I think many of us are existing in places in finding blue pockets in red states, and I love that you're reminding us that the whole story is not book bans and the cancellation of AP African American literature. That is certainly part of the story that's being told from the state house in Tallahassee, but
Yeah.
on the streets and in Ybor City and wherever you think of, and like there are all kinds of places in Tampa and Orlando and throughout Florida where it is safe to be queer, not like you said though, not without the dangers that are lurking. And again, the clown metaphor really works in this book because I do feel like Cherry's not safe sometimes, right? At
Yeah.
least, when Cherry's in her clown outfit, um, she's not safe in a way that is kind of predictable, right? The kids
Hmm.
are gonna knock her down at the roller rink or whatever. Like she's
Yeah.
she's not safe in a way that I kind of understand. But the unpredictability of not being in the clown outfit, I'm never quite sure who's gonna come up to her and what's gonna happen.
Hmm.
She's also in grief. We should at least mention there's that melding. I mean, everyone likes to talk about tragedy and humor and time,
Hmm.
but I felt like there's something slightly different going on here. It's like her brother Dwight was like a real cut up, right? He was a
Yeah.
shenaniganizer, right?
Yeah.
He what did he do? He cellophane, like he wrapped someone's boat, like all the boats, like he's a goofball, right?
Yeah.
And then he died. And so like there's this thing like how can our hearts still be funny about someone who was funny and who's
Yeah.
gone? And that's really, really hard, right? Yeah, my dad
Hmm.
was funny. My dad has passed away. Like my dad was a funny guy. It's hard
Yeah.
to it's hard to figure out how to hold on to funny when you're in grief about someone.
Yeah. That was really important to me as like a character arc for her, because I was like, this is going to show us who she is and who she wants to be and who she'll maybe become through this like dealing with and how not dealing with this like death of her brother, who's been dead like a few years now. Um, because it's one of those things where like, right, he was always funnier than her. Her mom loved him more. Like he like had like an effortless charm that drew people to him. Like he could get away with a lot of things that like she feels she can't get away with. And so some of this was like discovering like, right, that kind of bittersweet rosy fog of nostalgia, because nostalgia is this like nostalgia can be a beautiful thing, but a lot of times nostalgia is like a weapon, and nostalgia is a way in which we like can harm others and ourselves. So I was like, I want this to be a way in which like she has like grief and misses him, but she's also like angry a lot of the time. Like why did he get to be this kind of person and I can't be? And also ways in which she's able, like she's in constant comparison to like who he was and who she is. And so like in working through the book and through like her telling jokes and like making art, she's kind of able to see like, this is a lens and through which I've put him in this position. Like I'm choosing to see him this kind of way. Like what are the ways in which I'm mad? I'm still like angry at this like person who is in my life. And also the ways in which like I'm like stunting myself because I'm not allowing myself to be the kind of artist I want to be, because I'm constantly putting myself into a comparable situation with this person who's not even here, like trying to like compare with me anymore, right? He's dead. He's not here. I'm doing this on my own. And she can be like, have self-discovery in terms of like, I don't have to make art for him or in honor of him or like in a way he would do. And like, in fact, like maybe I've always been funnier than him. And maybe like, you know, like just because like, you know, he's kind of like a pranky guy. Like he likes to do like pranks and that's how people remember him. And, which is I mean, we could say clowning is juvenile too, but it's like in a juvenile kind of way because he also died when he was pretty young. So it's like, I wanted there to be like a kind of way in which like she could make some kinds of discoveries and self-analysis in terms of like what can I keep from this and what do I need to like let go of, and how can that still be funny? Like she's like, okay, like what are the different kinds of jokes and how is my humor changing so that I can learn to deal with this person being gone and that won't be here ever again.
Yeah, at a couple places in the book, Cherry's thinking, I should at least mention her name is Cheryl, but she talks about the fact that like Cheryl's someone who does your taxes, right?
Yeah.
Cheryl drives a beige sedan. Like Cherry's the one you go drinking with until 3 a.m. So I called her Cherry throughout the book, but
Yeah.
Cheryl/Cherry, she does talk about like her tendency to, you know, how can I turn this into a bit? You
Yeah.
know, like that's how her brain processes trauma and grief and anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I turn this situation into something that's easier to digest? And one of the scenes I really liked was when an old friend of her brother's comes in to buy a hermit crab for his kid. And
Yeah.
Cherry's just gonna sell a half dead hermit crab to somebody for 75% off or whatever. And the guy says, "Hey, you're Dwight's." Oh yeah, you're
Mm-hmm.
Dwight's sister. Oh, Dwight, and then goes reminiscing about Dwight.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's ever lost someone who had great reach, you know, my dad was a high school history teacher. He taught thousands of students, and after he
Yeah.
passed away, inevitably it happens that you run into somebody who goes on about how great the person you love was,
Yeah.
and you realize they don't know he's dead.
Yeah.
And you have to
Mm-hmm.
make a choice. And you're really good at writing these little pinch points, right? Cherry has to make a choice. Do I interrupt this guy's nostalgia about my brother to be like, oh yeah, P.S. he died,
Yeah.
idiot. Like he must have been
Yeah.
real close if you don't like, or do you just let the guy have the moment?
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, that means you're dying a little inside. And
Yeah.
as a reader, oh my God, you're just good at those pinch point. I don't know. I guess maybe I want to ask you, like, did you know going into that scene? Oh, I'm going to write about this part, and then he's going to like. Are you as
Yeah.
surprised as I am? How do you write those awkward moments?
Oh, that's a great question because that is a scene. No, I did not know I was going to go into that scene and do that. I also, it became like a framework in that particular chapter of funny, not funny, where I was kind of like, oh, you know, like maybe she could be asking herself, like, what's funny and then what's not funny. And so as she's going through this chapter in her head, it's like this all caps thing that like flashes like a neon sign in her head where it's like when something happens or she thinks of something, she'll be like, well, that's funny. And then something else will occur and she's like, that's not funny. And so as I was writing, I'm like, I wanted her to have like a weird interaction where she wasn't anticipating in a couple levels, where it's like this kind of guy comes in that she's like predisposed to like have a problem with, you know, kind of like dude in a suit who like looks like a kind of thing where I'm like, some of this looks like maybe like what your brother looked like. And so like, you know, subconsciously or maybe a little consciously, she's like, I'm mad at you. And so he comes in and she gives him a hard time. And when she realizes that he's like, first of all, he's doing something for his daughter, so she like loosens up a little bit. And then it's like, oh, this is like somebody who knew my brother. And so she's like, sitting in the middle of this. And I think some of it too is like what you're saying, like making that decision. But I think sometimes those things can catch us off guard too. And we don't know how to react in that moment. Like it kind of maybe stuns us like deer in headlights, a little frozen. And then like we just open our mouths and say whatever is going to come out. And so she starts doing it and she's like, well, shit, this isn't very funny. And so it's like, and also another thing too, is like, she's used to performing in many different ways in her life, even when she's not the clown. So she's doing a performance right there, right? She's like, okay, I can act like I'm the Cherry whose brother's still alive. I'll be that. I'll perform as this right now. It's not funny, but I can do the performance for the audience that I need to do. And so as I was doing that scene, that was one that a lot of things in this book I wrote and I didn't know I was going to do them until they happened. And so which made the book, even writing places like this that are like really bittersweet, you know, because he's been dead a few years, but it's still fresh for her. It's still a little like picking at a scab, I think. And so it allowed me to still have moments of levity and joy in that scene. And I think that was a really important kind of tightrope I was walking throughout this book, because I was like, I know I need there to be things in here where she's like, it's sad, right? Like things that are like sad and achy, like bruise-like, and keep getting pressed over and over again. But I want her to be like working this line where it still can be like for what it's like to be a person, even when we're experiencing grief and loss and pain. There's the opposite side of that coin constantly happening, right? There's levity, there's laughter, there's joy, there's like friendship, and there's these things that are also sitting side by side with those things, even if like we feel like we don't want to experience them, they bubble up no matter what. So it's very important to me to like keep that line there and to not drag down too far in a direction, or to be like a flippant. I didn't want to be flippant about like the pain that she experiences, because I was like, that would be doing it a disservice too. So I wanted to make sure that I was kind of straddling it and writing it right in the line the whole way through.
Yeah, I think it's Margot. Cherry goes on a date early with Margot, and then the relationship goes from there. But I think it's Margot who says, you know, loss is still loss, even if we insist it isn't. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and Cherry and Margot, Margot's a magician, Margot the
Mm-hmm.
Magnificent.
Yes.
Cherry and Margot get off to a bad start. Just a cringy date. The funny thing is, we all have gone on that date, right? We've all
Yes.
had that cringy date.
Yeah.
Oh, just like the food isn't quite as good as you thought, and the conversation is going nowhere, and you are misconnecting, and like
Yeah.
there's fettuccine alfredo congealing on the table. So like in the middle, or maybe towards the end of this like lousy date where you know nothing's gonna happen, or you think nothing's gonna happen,
Yeah.
you get this tenderness from like a pretty, actually, Margaret's pretty cold. Like
Yeah.
she has warm parts, but like I feel like we've all known a woman like Margot, you know, kind of a cool character who
Mm-hmm.
there's something about them that if you can get that little bit of warmth, that actually you can't help but be drawn to them because they're so cold otherwise.
Yeah.
But I don't know, where'd Margot come from, and what did you see her role as in this book?
Yeah. I knew pretty much right away when I started writing. Well, I knew things about Cherry. I was like, I know Cherry's into much older women. I know Cherry's into moms. I know Cherry is like a kind of like chaotic, like id of a person who's like stumbling into situations and kind of clowning her way through them. And I was like, I want her to have, especially in terms of art, since that's the thing she takes very, very seriously. I was like, I want her to have a foil and this kind of person who's going to be someone she's deeply attracted to for like, you know, like sexually attracted to, but also like attracted to on an artistic level. Like, I want there to be somebody who is cool and mysterious, like kind of all the ways that she is not, but also who has like been working on craft and has like developed a fan base and has like developed a practice. And I want there to be this kind of like idea of like, wow, I really am into you, but I also aspire to like be the kind of artist that you are. So I was like, I want them to go on this incredibly bad date. And I know I can set this up in this way where I'll be like, it's bad for a few reasons, right? Like, first of all, she shows up really late to this date. And then also she's telling jokes in a kind of way that are like, I think very, like, I was like, oh, this is like how you can tell they're like, right, like they're not connecting at all. And then I also wanted it to be like, it's like maybe a thing too, is like she recognizes who this person is. And she's going to maybe lie about how old she is. Like, she's going to say she's older than she was, and she's going to show up, and it's going to be incredibly apparent that she is not many of the things that she said she is. And so I was like, okay, but then how can I, like, I wanted Margot to be like that kind of cool, right? Like kind of black cat sensibility, right? Where when you earn her trust or she does let you in, then you're getting something very special because it feels like not many people get to have that. And because she is such a like serious artist, I wanted it to feel like, and also like this kind of hierarchy in performance where like, you know, like people like might take like, because she's very serious, like established magician, and people are taking that more seriously than she's like, oh, you're a clown. Like, what do you do? You know, like that, that's like the level of artistry, right? In terms of like tackiness and like classiness. So I was like, okay, like, but I love the idea. I don't know. It was like, I was like, I know I need them to play off each other in a lot of ways. Because I was like, I want her to be a love interest, but I also want her to be an artistic interest, and like how those two can play off each other, like the clown and like the cool classy magician, like how will those two different kinds of things like sit inside this book. So that to me, like Margot was like deeply important, and I could feel like I knew exactly who she was going to be as soon as I started writing the book, because I was like, I need her in there to be this like interesting foil for my goofball protagonist.
I like that black cat sensibility because there really is. I pictured Margot right away, and there is something really alluring about Margot the Magnificent, this established magician. And you do a good job of pairing want and longing, because if you're someone I want to learn from, that can be a sexual relationship. Or if we're talking about our careers and I want to learn, how did you get booked for those jobs? I'd like to get booked. That's also different. And I think that where I saw real softness with Cherry and Margot was when the want got kind of tangled. And then you kind of also knew where it was heading because the want was tangled, right? That if Cherry thinks Margot's sexy, right? So she's attracted to Margot, but Margot's also like got her shit together and she wants to learn from her. And those are maybe two different wants, but they get all balled up in even maybe a third want where there's a mothering that Margot isn't going to offer but can't help but offer. And then all just gets tangled up. And it gets tangled up in ways that make real sense to me. And you can, I think as a reader, you can root for them because you want it all to work out, even if you know, oh, wait a minute. If you have a bad relationship with your mom and then you're like sexually attracted to people who are like moms, I wonder if maybe you should like think on that.
Yeah, I was like, this is for sure a book of mommy issues. But it was a thing too where I was like, I mean, what are things that are attractive in people? And quite often, like confidence, somebody who's good at what they do, like those are things that are like can
That's
attract you in
sexy.
terms.
Yeah.
It's sexy. It's
Yeah.
sexy to be like you're really fucking good at your job. Like you
Mm-hmm.
are, especially like some kind of like or like I love your art. Like your art is sexy to me. Like I love what
Yeah.
you do. And so those things I think like naturally become tangled because like it's erotic. It can be erotic, like right to like especially like I was like power dynamics can sometimes play into all this stuff too, right? Like you're like so in control of what you have a mastery of what you do. There's this kind of way which I feel like and like kind of queer thing too where it's like do I want to like be you, do I want to have sex with you kind of thing, you know, so it's like I mean those things are like, and that's my favorite kind of messy thing to think about anyway because I think that's how dynamics play out with plenty of people, right? So many people too are like, oh this is like, oh this is like I'm so attracted to you or this is going on, but also yeah like oh it's mommy issues or something like that. Like these things are all happening simultaneously.
Well, we need more books with queer protagonists and just messy queer. I wouldn't even call it like rom-com love, but like like I feel like we either have like serious queer love like this, or we have like porn, and then there's a middle ground, right? This is just like dating, and we get to go on these dates, and we get to mess up the relationship a little bit. You said something about mommy issues, and that's making me think of your previous book with teeth.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Uh, we do not have we do not have time
We don't have time for those
to
mommy
talk about
issues.
biting.
Yeah.
But I will say let's make one comparison. The way you open a book, in both cases, I feel like you in with teeth, it was like a dad and two kids removing a tumor from a dead deer, and then like you said, taxidermy. Um, and this one we get, I think we're in a bathroom with a
Mhm.
mom who's hired Cherry to be the clown, and then they are making out in the bathroom, and there's a magic wand involved. And these are opening scenes. We're all
Yeah.
in. Like, what is your approach to opening scenes seems quite intentional, and you
Yes.
you kind of grab us by the junk. So talk to me a little bit about opening scenes.
I'm gonna use that from now on. I'm going to steal that. If you
Please
see me
do.
say it somewhere, know I stole that from you.
Amen.
Um, yeah, it's really important to me. I know I have a book I'm ready to work on if that scene is like a punch. Like it feels like, oh yeah, here we go. So Mostly Dead Things, that opening scene with them like, you know, dissecting that deer on the table as kids with their dad, like that to me was like, there it is, boom. With teeth, like this like thwarted child abduction that happens like in like real time, like very
Oh,
quickly. I was like, this I saw it and I was like, there it is. That's the beginning of this book. This I immediately knew. I sat down, I wrote this in an afternoon. I was like with my wife, we were at a coffee shop and I made her stop what she was doing. I wrote this like feverishly. I wrote it and I went, stop. I was like, you have to read this right now. And I made her like sit at this coffee shop and read this opening scene because I was like, it's going to start with like a little bit of a paragraph where she's like talking about humor or whatever, and then immediately be like, I'm having sex with this wife of a guy who I'm like doing like the birthday party for their kid. We're in a bathroom and I was like, I want it to be so fast and so quick and also like slapstick. I was like, I wanted to contain all of this kind of stuff. I was like, we're opening with a sex scene. It's gonna be a clown. I'm gonna have a clown voice in it. I'm gonna do all these things. I was like, this is where the book starts because it sets the tone for me. I feel like if the beginning of a novel doesn't set the tone for me, I'm not gonna finish that draft. It's not done. It doesn't feel like it's starting in the right place. If I start in the right place, then I can be like, okay, I see where we're going. But if I don't start, I feel like openings are really important to me. Like I was like, I need to know where we're starting so I can get to where we're going. And I know right away if I sit down and I write an intro that's not that, I was like, this isn't gonna go where I want it to. And that's always disappointing to me because I feel like I'll get ideas for things and the ideas are so fun. And then I'll sit down and
right.
I'll write that intro and I'm like, well, never mind. I'm like, that's not it, I guess. Oh well.
Well, your intros are great, and I think it's Ann Patchett maybe who talked about the butterfly, like the ideas that are floating around above our heads. We're just like, oh yeah, the idea, like, and maybe it could do this, and like, look at how the butterfly's wing catches the light, and then in order to write it, you just have to like pin the butterfly down and like just pierce it through, and then it's dead, and then you
Yeah.
can't see the light, and you can't see how it flies. You're like, ah. But no, I think in both of those, and I misspoke. You're right. Mostly dead things is the taxidermy.
Yeah.
But just the idea of grabbing the reader, and there's an energy and a
Hmm.
pulse and a furiousness. And I do think like maybe someone thinks they're not into clowns or not into taxidermy, and sure, maybe they'll close it. But I think for the most part, your reading really propels us in. And my opening scenes are usually like a person starting the day looking in the mirror or like sitting in an Italian restaurant. I'm just like, I hate them. And so like there's a lot of wisdom. I think if you're a writer out there or an aspiring writer trying to figure out how to open a book, pick up one of Kristen Arnett's. Hey, I know you as America's favorite dad, but I realize I don't know why. That's how I know you. Where did that nickname come from? Do I know?
I think I named myself. How all great nicknames start. Uh, I truly think I got America to call me dad, and that's maybe my greatest feat that I've done. But some of it was like I kind of just started claiming dad culture. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
into it. I'm into like the idea of like sitting in my yard drinking a beer. I'm into like the idea of like barbecuing. I'm into the idea of like certain kinds of like doing things in a yard or fixing stuff or like, pep talks or like, I don't know, just like kind of being around and alive. And I was like, and then it kind of like morphed for me into like, like ways in which like dads can be like helpful or interesting. And that's like kind of like teaching lessons, but also being open to learning. And so it turned into a thing where I was like, I'm just going to start claiming this for myself. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. I just started calling myself dad and I sneakily got everybody else to do it too.
Well, it works for me. Okay, well, I like it. Claim it, own it, reclaim that space. A lot of us if you didn't have a relationship with a dad that you need, you guys, folks, you have Kristen Arnett here to get you through it. And I'll make sure to link to your is it the Substack? I'm trying to think where I read you in a lot of
Yeah.
places. The Substack, I
Dad
think, is probably great.
lessons.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll link to dad lessons to make people know. Hey, we
Awesome.
always close with some just some this and that goofy quick questions to get a glimpse at the writer behind the writer. Okay, you
Yeah.
ready? All
Yes.
right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Mountains or beach?
Beach of Florida. Yeah.
Right. You guys,
Yeah.
there's so many good, so
We
many
have
beaches.
great beaches. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Dogs or cats?
Oh, both. Both. I love both. Yeah.
Yeah, dads don't have to choose. Geckos or hermit crabs?
Oh. Oh, this is so hard. I might go gecko on this one, but reserve the right to change my mind.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about living in Florida was I didn't know that there were just like lizards on the loose, and I
Oh, they're
really took it.
everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're
They're
absolutely
everywhere.
they're so cute. Okay, Velma from Scooby Doo or Brenda Walsh from 90210.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm more of a Velma. I'm more into Brenda. So I'm
Gotcha.
gonna go Brenda. Yeah.
We could have done it. We could have done an entire podcast. I sometimes think about that. Like I could invite writers on to never talk about their books and only talk about like pop culture obsessions, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll be my spin-off podcast because we could have Brenda'd the shit out of this.
We really could have.
Because like I learned to do a breast exam because of Brenda, right? Like she's an unsung hero in that show.
She really is. I love her. I worked her into the book. I was like,
I
I love
know.
her.
I love that. Okay, if you were not married and a dad in your yard and you got a chance to pick, would you be more interested in a woman over 50 who looks like she could lead a rigorous step aerobics class, or would you be more interested in a woman who is over the age of 50 who unapologetically loves Precious Moments figurines?
Oh God. Probably the aerobics. Yeah. Probably the aerobics. The Precious Moments is a little too close to my own mom. I can't be doing that.
All moms, I think, of a certain age, like Precious
Yeah.
Moments, or those
Whew.
Yadro. Like, I just feel like there was a kind of figurine that was in all our homes. Okay, if you were hosting a child's birthday party, would you be more likely to hire a magician or have it at a roller rink?
Oh, probably roller rink because I would want to be on the roller rink.
Yeah. Every birthday party I ever loved in the 80s was at a roller rink. We would roller skate to Oh Mickey, You're So Fine. Or there would be like the snowball skate where like the girls could ask the guys. And that would maybe be to like a Sheena Easton song. Yeah, roller skating takes me back. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl. And my wife's an early bird. So I love staying up. And I don't like to be doing too much. I just like to be up. I want to be like awake and like watching something stupid or like looking at something horrible on the internet. Like not horrible in a capacity where it's just like something weird. But I like being up. It feels like a time where I can be alone a little bit and like process my stupid thoughts in a way that feels fun. But God, no, I'm not a morning person. I wish.
Yeah, I haunt the house as well. Are you a risk taker or the person who always knows where the Band-Aids are?
Oh, I think I've kind of segued into both because I've always been like really impulsive. I'm a Sagittarius and I like to make impulsive decisions. But usually work out really well for me. But I also have like leaned into like, I think some of the dad culture stuff is being prepared. So like I take care of the stuff in our house. So I'm like, I'm like, this needs to be put together. This is a little cluttered. Let me get it. Like, so I'm the one that knows where the Band-Aids are right now. Like if my wife needed a Band-Aid, I'd be like, here's the Band-Aid. But
got it.
Yeah.
This is a fill in the blank. If you weren't a writer and you had a little magic, what would you do instead?
Gosh, there's so many things that I feel like I would maybe want to do. I like being a librarian as well, but like if I had a little magic, like if I could do like some magic, if I had a little magic, I could do, I don't know, maybe I'd do some stand-up comedy or something. Like it'd be like just genuinely like really funny. I think that seems fun in practice. I don't know, I'm going to talk myself out of everything. I'd be like a fun bartender. I don't know.
I think the best bartenders are kind of stand-up comics because you get to like, you know how what you don't see of stand-up when they're hosting Saturday Night Live is the 57 times before that when they were like working out. Sorry, my dog is tap dancing, but like they were working out the bit. And I feel like as a bartender, you could work out the bit again and again. You could rehearse
Yeah.
it and get your timing down, and I kind of like that idea.
Yeah. Bartender slash stand-up comedian. There we
All right.
go.
Works for me. Do you have a movie that if it's on television you can't not watch, or a television show you've seen 30 times and you're like, I think I'll watch this again, or give us a
Yeah.
pop culture reference?
The movie is any of the Blade movies. If that is on TV, I will sit down and I will be like, guess I'm not leaving until I watch this through. Any of the three. I'm not going to be choosy. I'll watch them. And a TV show I like to rewatch. Like I like to rewatch like 30 Rock, or like Arrested Development, like first 3 seasons of Arrested Development. I'll even like put on like The Office and have it be funny. Like on my birthday, like I like to watch the birthday episodes of The Office and drink mimosas in a bathrobe. I mean, some of that stuff is like you can feel the writer's room in those shows, and I'm like interested in like how those people like sat down and like had fun. But yeah, like movie wise, I will sit down and watch Blade. I will be watching Blade. I'm probably gonna watch it now that I talked about it. I'm gonna have to go put it on after this.
My son is 12, and when he makes birthday cards now, he just only will write, "It is your birthday,"
It's a
period.
statement
And
of fact.
like it's just he Dwight's every birthday card now. And one of my favorite things about this age is that he's finally old enough to watch Arrested Development with me. Granted, not all parenting choices are for you, and so now like some people be like, I can't believe you would show Arrested Development, but it's hilarious to like watch that
Yeah.
show. Like he and I will make cornballer references, and he's always
Don't
like,
touch
her,
the corn baller. Yeah.
her. Or he's like loose seal, and you're right. Like that. Oh, to have been a fly in the wall, or even a writer in that writer's room. The interconnectivity of some of those shows, I I would love to just see how those sausages were made, because
Yeah.
that's just you can't help but see the writing for those.
Yeah. That dinner party episode of The Office is like a classique. Like the jokes that they got off in that, I still say like, or like it goes right into the wall and pretend to push the tiny television. Like that's just stuff that I'm like, that's so dumb. I love it.
This is the room where I make my candles. And then one night you made everything over.
Or like drinking
Jen.
wine. You're drinking wine and be like, this has sort of an oaky afterbirth.
Oh, we just have to braise it real quick. It'll be ready in about 3 hours. Oh my God. Okay, last two. What's your favorite ice cream?
Ooh, pistachio, actually.
Nice.
Pistachio.
And last one, if we were to take a picture of you really happy and doing something you love, what would we see?
Drinking beer in my backyard.
Nice. America's dad, everyone.
America's father.
Father America. If you in your most recent book has been described, it's called Stop Me If You've Heard This One, but it's been described as equal parts bravado, tenderness, and humor, and I think that's really spot on. Kristen Arnett, thank you for bringing your tenderness and humor into the show today.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh, I'm grateful. Folks, this is Kristen Arnett. She has a number of books with teeth and Stop Me If You've Heard This One. And what's the title that I keep getting wrong? The dead one?
Mostly dead things.
Mostly dead things.
That's all right.
You will not be disappointed by any of them, and I'll make sure to link to the other places where you can find her writing. But pick these stories up at a library or an indie shop near you. And to everyone listening, we're wishing you love and light wherever the day takes you. Be good to yourself, be good to one another. And then we'll see you again soon on this wild and precious journey.